Good morning, my virtual sons and daughters, and anybody else who watches these videos. Um, by the way, that's not meant to be condescending. It's meant to be tongue-in-cheek. The advice today is don't accept criticism from anyone you wouldn't take advice from. I've said that before. I'm going to expand on it in great detail here. And the reason why is because two things happened yesterday. 3 different people asked me, DM'd me with like video ideas. Hey, would you shoot a video on this? One of the videos was, can you explain, he asked me, how much are you actually worth and how did you build your wealth? Let me start by saying you don't hear a lot of people talk about how they actually built their wealth and how much they're actually worth, because it's kind of there's no way to to talk about it without really looking like a douche. I mean, you got to walk a really fine line. I mean, I obviously will say that I have fuck you money and I've made millions of dollars, but I don't ever talk about like the actual amount of money I have in my bank account and that's the question he's asking. But he's asking it in the context of how did I build my wealth? And really the only person out there that you're going to get information would be like Dave Ramsey. And I agree with a lot of what Dave Ramsey says, but definitely there are a lot of things Dave Ramsey suggests that I don't agree with. So I think I'm going to answer that question. I'm just not going to do it in this video. I'll do it in a follow-up, probably the next video I do. But I have to answer another question first, because the mindset is so important to building wealth. Not just the mechanics, but how you view the world and how you view certain situations. And one of those mindsets is don't accept criticism from people you wouldn't take advice from. I always expand it and I always say this. Don't take to heart anything from anyone whose life you don't want. So there are a lot of times where people, the more successful you become, the more you have what other people want, the more jealous people are. I mean, and again, there's no way to say that without sounding like a douche. But it's true. The more you have, the more successful you are, the more jealous people are. And we live in a world where, I don't know, 60% of the people, we come into contact with are dissatisfied with their outcomes, maybe 70. I'm not sure what the number is. I know it's big. I know I love my life, and I know I don't want anybody else's life. And I know I don't give a shit what anyone says. I know that. I know if you think about, if you look at the year 2023, last year, I took advice from probably fucking 4 people all year long. You know what I mean? And Brian Shaw, the 4 times world's strongest man, is one of them. I don't take advice or don't accept criticism from people you wouldn't accept to take advice from. And I want to put this in context, okay? Many times when you are a man of purpose, when you have a mission, when you have core values, when you are trying to make your dent in your universe, humility is a core value I use to build teams. It's like, what am I good at and what am I not good at, and how do I go find the people who are good at the things I'm not good at, right? That's humility. My success, I will answer the question about where, how did I build my wealth and what was the steps I took and what trip, when did I get tripped up and, all that kind of stuff. I'll answer those questions. I just won't do it in this video. I'll do it in the next one. Many, many times over the course of my life, I cannot tell you the number of times over the course of my life where people told me I was wrong. That my mindset was wrong, my approach was wrong, my personality was too abrupt. People don't tell me that now because I have fuck you money. I have the results. And so people aren't critical. There are people who are critical, but not compared to when I was on the come up. And I use this story all the time. In my office, there is a ladder. I have a wooden ladder I have leaning against the wall. And I had a student ask me one day during a live stream, what's that ladder all about? Actually, it's a student who actually came to work for us. He owned a company, and he actually sold his interest in a company and came and joined our team years later. But he asked me the question, what's that ladder back there? And I told him, I said, it's a reminder. That ladder against the wall back there is to remind me where I came from. And I tried to describe what it was like growing up in a trailer park and then becoming successful over the course of my life. And it was a series of making the right, facing a choice and making the right choice. And like doing that based on my core values and ignoring the noise and focusing on the outcome and all that. And I told him, I said, growing up poor is like growing up in a mud pit. Imagine you've got a football field and someone has cut a cylindrical hole in the ground that drops down, say, 10 feet. And there's a bunch of people in there. Water's been sprayed at the bottom. Everybody's all muddy and they're all fighting for scraps. And the middle class and the wealthy, they're all up there on the football field. Well, being a person who's going to become socially mobile, you don't just have the people up above who are, you got a ladder there that you're trying to climb, and you got people up above who are kicking you down. They don't want you up there. They want more for themselves. You also have people down in the pit who are dragging on you, pulling you down because they want their spot on the ladder. And when you get to the top, you're all covered in mud, and that dries off and you wipe it off you, but you still have this fine veneer, this fine dust of where you came from. And everybody up there always knows where you came from. Everybody up where you were trying to go always knows where you came from. Okay? That ladder reminds me of where I came from. I never I don't hide from the fact that I grew up in a trailer park. I don't try to talk like the people. I say all the time, I remember this one time we were in line to board a plane, and I was seated in first class. We're getting ready to board, and there was a guy in a 3-piece suit. He's got a Louis bag. He's wearing designer shoes. He's wearing a high-priced Citizen's watch, and he was very condescending to a lady who wasn't dressed like him. He assumed that she wasn't in first class, she wasn't in group 1, and he really looked down her nose at her. And he was fucking incredibly condescending to her. He was like, "Excuse me, we're boarding first," And I looked at him and I said, if you were observant, you'd see that her boarding pass is also black, which means she's in first class. Just because she didn't dress for it doesn't mean that she's not in the same class of service as you are. And he was shocked. He looked at me. And I said, and here's a piece of advice for you. I said, everybody here may think you have money. I know you don't. Because guys dressed like you work for guys dressed like me. Okay? That was me using my power and authority, my influence from my success to put that guy in his place for how he treated somebody else. Here's another way I do it. I tell my team all the time, there's this whole thing with Jerry Jones going around, and Jerry Jones threatened to fire Sean Sharif or whoever at 105.3 The Fan because they asked him some tough questions. And he said, I'm not coming here to answer these questions. If you keep asking them, I'm going to fire you. First off, I don't do that, okay, as a leader. In fact, I tell team members when I hire them, your job is to question me. My job is to defend my position. You bring in people into your circle. When you're successful, you bring people into your circle who are going to question you because they should Socratically reveal your vulnerabilities. They're covering your 6 by Socratically revealing where your blind spots are. The fucking idiot, the idiot leader is the guy who doesn't want to be questioned. So I'm not suggesting that successful people don't want to be questioned, but you better be right. And let me tell you how I handle it when someone is wrong and they come at me. I say, listen, I've already explained why we're doing it my way. I've already explained it. I've already laid it out. But let me drive this point home. You want my life. I don't want yours. So we're going to do it my way. All right? Now, there are people who may have watched this right now, and they're very uncomfortable with that. They're like, man, that's really, that's not kind. That's not. The world isn't kind. Okay? Professionalism and kindness are tools that elites use to control working class people. There are fucking pit bulls in the boardroom. They are animals. Half of them are psychopaths, literally, have no empathy whatsoever. The world is unforgiving. And when I answer the question about my success, I have to do it from within the context of I was hyper-focused on not accepting criticism from people I wouldn't take advice from, and reminding myself I'm only going to shut my mouth and listen with people who have the life I want. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm not going to listen to everybody. I am. I'm going to listen to everyone. But I'm only going to consume criticism from people I take advice from, and I'm going to shut up and listen when someone who's got the life I want is speaking. Okay? At my age, when I was younger, I did a lot of listening. And I would jump from room to room. When you look around and you realize you're the smartest guy in the room, it's time to find another room. You don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, because that's how you elevate. But it got to the point where it was rarer and rarer. I mean, now it's got to the point where I have to be around elite, world-class athletes and business people for me to be around someone where I can justify shutting up and listening. But it wasn't like that 20 years ago. It wasn't like that when I was in my 20s. I was listening a lot. However, whenever someone around me was criticizing me or challenging me, and they didn't have a life I want, or they weren't someone I would take advice from, I shut it out. Now, let me finish with this piece here. I had a conversation with a relative last night. She watches this content, so I love you. Please do not get angry with what I'm about to say. This is an important lesson. She had a tough childhood too. And she's we are biologically related. I love her to death. We're super close. She had a tough childhood too. And she would openly admit that she hasn't made the best choices in the partners that she's selected in her life. She's a wonderful mother. She would openly admit that she's made some suspect choices with her husbands, okay? And she's been struggling with her she has a son who's an adult, but he's not a man. He's a kid. She even referred to him as a kid. And he's a great kid, but he's not a man. And I pointed out to her, a woman can't raise a man. Ladies, you cannot raise a man. You cannot raise a man. Only a man can raise a man. All right? So this is a moment where you should be listening. You should be listening. If you want your sons to be like me, or you want your sons to be like my sons, and believe me, everyone who comes in contact with us, there isn't anyone who's like, oh my God, your fucking kids are retards. No, they're like, how did you end up with kids like that? Well, the answer is, I didn't accept criticism from people I wouldn't take advice from, and I didn't listen to people who didn't have the life I want. Because there's a lot of people who will tell me, yeah, it's okay, just coddle your kids, just whatever. In business, I got a lot of advice that would have been terrible advice if I had taken it. In my personal life, I've gotten lots of advice that would have been terrible advice that I had taken it. Okay? The fact of the matter is, when I talk about how I built my wealth, if I talk about how I've been successful in powerlifting, if I talk about how I've been successful as a parent, there were a lot of mistakes I made, but I incrementally got better, and I did that at the speed of light because I only listened to people who had the life I want. Okay? See you next time.